I love that they decided to let artists swing a bottle of champagne like we were launching a ship. But we were launching a ship. They were launching a ship, a new ship, and so it was very appropriate.
I remember the opening day because we had so many people anxious to come to the museum and the crowds circling the block waiting in line to get in. And it was such a sense of just the right situation, the right timing, everything just coming together really beautifully because the collection we had built by then deserved this beautiful setting that we had in the building.
Their gift of their collection and the formation of the International Quilt Study Center and Museum is one of the most important acts that has been done in the for American quilts and for quilt making traditions worldwide.
No one could have imagined the ripple effect or the ramifications or the outpouring of the James's original gift of quilts to the university. What started as a gift with an academic program has really morphed into this absolutely amazing journey of a world-renowned reputation, a world-renowned museum.
But in those last few weeks, right before we actually opened to the public, it was sort of almost like a religious experience to come into this beautiful building and imagine how the quilts were going to look on the walls, but most importantly, imagine what it was going to be like when visitors started walking through those doors.
And it was just an amazing thing that the Jameses had done and all of the donors had done to give Nebraska this wonderful location, this wonderful place to visit, but also to realize, especially when you read the Quilt House quote on the outside of the building, that our building was something that was really given to all quilt lovers around the world. And the Byron and Sarah Rhodes Dillow collection was another significant gift in 2008. And it was particularly significant because Sarah collected quilts that were primarily from pre-1850 dates. Having Sarah Dillow's quilts really gave us so much more depth in the collection.
One of the reasons for the James's gift was to preserve the stories. Every quilt, when it is made, has a story.
Giving back was sort of a fundamental part of who my parents were and are. You know, growing up in the Depression, I heard a lot of stories about, and on a farm, my father, of out-of-work people coming by, and my grandmother and grandfather would make sure that they got something to eat, even though there wasn't a lot. That was a sort of fundamental principle that Kathy and Bob and I learned very early, and that there are many, many ways to give back.
In one word, Bob, I would say determined, probably. He is somebody whose passions propel him to get to the finish line, basically. And I think he did that in this case with this building, and also with the addition that opened in 2015.
Bob was a brilliant businessman, as we know. He recognized from the beginning a lot of the things that we've been talking about, that it needed a stable place, that it was worth doing, that these were pieces of American art that the world should recognize, that it needed to be preserved, and that there needed to be a place that concentrated entirely on them with the standards of a modern institution, a staff, an appropriate building, etc. So from the beginning, that was the intent.
Otis was a sweetheart. Otis was interested in everybody she came in contact with. She was gentle and thoughtful.
She had that fading American quality grit. She was phenomenal. She never gave up, always looked to do the very best. So she was an amazing person, and it was a privilege to know her.
When you came away from an encounter with my mother, you you felt something very different than you had before.
So, artists had to overcome, towards the end of her life, a lot of physical disabilities. She never complained. She always made it through, and I admired that because that requires an enormous presence of mind. At the same time, she never wavered from her intent, and that's what I mean by grit. It's sticking to it.
There's nothing really like the Quilt Study Center, and we're very lucky that we are not only able to engage within our community and the world at large with these quilts, but also that we are able to research and study them and learn not just about the objects themselves, but about the people who created them and the cultures they came from. I think the people who made these quilts, many of them would probably be shocked that objects that they made for their own personal use have become appreciated objects for many, many people, and not just appreciated, but also researched and studied and used as almost cultural documents.
I often think about the opening exhibition that Carolyn Ducey and I curated when the museum first opened. It was called Quilts in Common, and I think it really encapsulated what it is that is so special about our institution, and that is bringing people together, bringing cultures together, finding commonalities between quilts that are from completely different times and places.
They didn't stop as many museums do. They're going forward. They have people all over the world collecting, and as I walk through the museum today, there are wonderful exhibitions of contemporary quilt makers. So the issue is that their vision encompassed bringing that vision to the modern world and keeping it going.
Oftentimes when we're traveling internationally and we say, we're from the International Quilt Study Center Museum, people will look at us and we'll say, in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they'll go, oh, Lincoln, the quilts and the Quilt Museum.
I think we get a lot of pilgrims here, quilt world pilgrims for whom this is the equivalent of Mecca or the Vatican or some place that almost has a spiritual dimension.
We're only on this earth for a short period of time, and I think what we all try to do is establish some sort of legacy, and clearly my parents have done that. I think it's a very important thing that they've done through quilts, and I consider it an honor and a privilege to be part of that, to continue that, continue their story and the story of thousands and thousands of quilt makers, past and future. To be a part of that is humbling and extraordinary.